Okay, about military refusing orders. Usually it's very not dramatic. Okay, so this came up for me a lot. I had to refuse a lot of illegal orders, or at least attempt to refuse a lot of illegal orders, because I was in intelligence, and intelligence is in charge of the secrets. In fact, when my boss took over, the one you can read about in my book Uncultured, Scott Halter, signed copies attached here, you can listen to it. He told me, he said, commanders go to jail for two things: messing up secrets and messing up finance. And he was like, don't let me mess up secrets. Okay. Did he still then order me to do several illegal things with secrets because he was not the expert on that? Yes. And did I have to say, sir, with all due respect, that's illegal. We can't do that. And then sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't. And you have to decide if your career is worth it. And what that could look like will be like, okay, I'll run your practice scenario on an unclassified network instead of the secret one, as long as you know and everyone else knows that I have told you and I have warned you that we're not going to do this. But if he had been like, hey, I want you to get open, go prepare information for us to invade Canada, I would have been like, no, sir, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to let you into your secret vault. Right? So the kind of order that I would have to refuse would almost certainly be about secrets. And I have seen a private first class, a PFC, pull a weapon on a colonel who was refusing to give over his smartphone before going into a secret classified briefing. And the private was correct, and the colonel did what he was supposed to do, and nobody got in trouble. Right? You are supposed to refuse illegal orders. And people, soldiers and service members in the jobs where illegal orders frequently come from, which tend to be secrets, finances, logistics, HR, all of the things you don't usually think about in the military. We're saying no to illegal orders all the time, and we are the experts reminding the commanders on what illegal orders are. And then there's the other kind, which are operational orders. And this is why every battalion and brigade has legal representation, so that they can be the ones to be like, I don't think that will be legal, right? So what most people are thinking of when they think about illegal orders is the very, very rare, situation of like a tyrant or someone being like, kill them all, or this thing that we saw in the Caribbean, right? So how would that have gone? Well, pilots can say no to a mission at any time. Pilots can be like, sir, feeling a bit witchy today, so I think I'm not going to fly this mission. Drone operators are technically considered pilots. I don't know, because I was not in the Air Force and I only worked a lot with drone operators, but never in these kinds of questions. So I don't know if they have the same thing as pilots where they're allowed to refuse any order just because it doesn't sit right. Probably not. They're probably only allowed to refuse illegal orders. But that person in the moment would have been like, no, sir, I'm not going to do that. And then someone else would have come over and either done it or also said, nope, we're not going to do that. And you can only get through a few levels of people that are qualified to do the thing before you run out. And then it usually doesn't get done. Like usually when soldiers and service members say no to illegal orders, those illegal orders are stopped and nothing happens. If it is determined that it wasn't actually illegal, you could get in trouble for insubordination. I put my foot down on something once during a down helicopter drill that I thought was good information, and it wasn't. And by drill, I mean there was a down helicopter outside the wire while we were deployed, and I stood my ground with an 04 with a major, and I got in a huge amount of crap afterwards. But nothing that affected my career. So it's almost never as dramatic as it sounds. And if you haven't yet heard the story of James Blunt and the general he worked for refusing an order that might have led to World War III, you should go Google it. Yes, that James Blunt. So usually it's not very dramatic when people are like, how do we know soldiers are going to refuse illegal orders? It happens all the time. It's happening every day somewhere in the military. But again, I remind you all, I never once said that nobody would follow illegal orders. I tried to explain and educate so much about how a difference between our military and other militaries in the world, especially ones that have been used by dictators, a big difference and a big safety, a big check and balance to the American people is that individual soldiers and service members can and are expected to say no to illegal orders. And there's no version of turning weapons on Americans that is an illegal order. So you will be very hard pressed, I think, to see the American military weaponized against the American people in the way that people are afraid of. That is what I have said. Did I say that individual soldiers or service members are not likely to follow illegal orders? Never have I said that. I've written 2 very critical books about the US military and the honor of the people inside it, right? Like, we are always having soldiers commit war crimes and having to go after them for stuff. But that is why when we do have war crimes, what you see is pretty individual stuff. One commander, one drone operator, not an entire battalion, right? You can have individually based war crimes, small team war crimes. We see those happening often because a few people or a person can make a bad decision. Is an entire brigade, which is what runs military operations, likely to go along with a tyrant? Absolutely not. And that is not what we saw here. I know, Reagan, you're awesome, of course. I just want to explain this, and people are already coming at me with the, oh, I thought you said no one was going to do illegal or... Never said that, folks. Literally part of my job was kicking people out of the military for doing illegal stuff all the time with secrets. They're people. They're people. They know their jobs. They know the laws of their jobs, just like you all know the laws of your jobs. And just like most people are likely to not break the law, especially on big, important things around their job, so are service members. But just like you're also likely to sometimes break the law, so are individual service members.